welcome back to Broken and Brilliant. I'm Carrie O'Toole with Carrie O'Toole Ministries, and I have an awesome guest with me today, and I'm so excited for you to meet her. Her name is Cassandra Perkins. Welcome, Cassie.
Hey, Carrie, how are you doing? Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. This is fun because we're reversing roles today.
Right. In a way, yeah, we really are.
Yeah, last time we met, you were interviewing me.
Right, on my talk show, yeah.
Yes. So here
Which
we are.
was amazing, by the way.
Well, thank you. We'll link it maybe. And
yeah,
people
absolutely.
Can go listen to that one. No video on that one, so
right.
I think we were in sweats that day or
something.
something.
Right, probably.
Anyway, tables are turned now, so welcome. You're on the hot seat today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Well, I'm so excited because I've heard about you and I know what you're doing now, but I never really heard the story about what happened in your life earlier. And I know it was very dramatic because you're doing some amazing things today because of it. So do you mind just sharing your story with us?
Well, thank you. But yeah, absolutely. I would love to share my story. So basically, I think it really starts back in charter school. So I was in an elementary charter school, wore uniforms 5 days a week, 24/7, all school year. The classes were maybe, even the grades were like 20 people. You
right.
knew everyone knew you, everyone knew your family. You just knew everything about each other, and you couldn't make fun of someone for what they're wearing because turn around and you're wearing the exact same thing. So it was just a really tight community, and everyone was really good friends. But obviously elementary school ended and there wasn't a high school charter school at the time. So, I made the decision, or a middle school charter school at the time. So I made the decision to go into a public middle school. And, I've always been really outgoing and I've loved myself, and I've really thought of myself as an outgoing, loving, beautiful, kind individual. And that's really the way I've looked at myself my entire life. And, not to be like cocky or anything,
right.
but that's just how I've looked at myself, that, I was a good individual and loved the world and loved people. But, I was always really crazy, and I loved the color black, and I loved big tutus and combat boots, and, it was just my personality. And
Mix it up.
Right, but I thought, what an amazing way for me to be able to express myself with my clothes going into middle school. People are going to be able to see how I am versus in a uniform. I could wear my hair however I wanted, I could dress however I wanted, to an extent. And so, I walked into school on the first day with this big tutu and, the color black, and, no one knowing who I was or who I am, judged me right away. And they pointed and laughed and called me names. And, I remember being in my first class and we were playing the name game where you had to remember everyone's name. And I jumped up and said, "Yo, my name's Cassie." And everyone laughed at me and pointed and laughed and called me names. And I just really didn't think twice about it at the time. I was just like, well, whatever, and I went to the mirror in my room and I said, I'm still beautiful. I'm still the kind, loving, caring individual that I know and love. But, slowly over 7th grade, that person in the mirror that I knew and loved started to change. And, I really started to question myself, Carrie, am I goth? Am I emo? Mm-hmm. Am I fat? Am I ugly? And these are just things I started to question myself. So I looked in the mirror and said, I need to change. So I went out and bought all the brand name clothes, brand name shoes, brand name backpacks. I changed my hair differently. I grew it out so I could just fit in with everyone else. Then I started friending the popular people and being friends with the popular people. And they still bullied me. The people I thought were my friends still called me emo and goth and checked my wrists for cuts and just dumb things. And, I was really, at the end of 8th grade, I really saw that person in the mirror and didn't know who that person was anymore. I was fat, I was goth, I was emo, I was stupid, I was dumb, and I didn't want to live on this planet anymore. And I did try to commit suicide. And lucky for me, I didn't succeed.
I think this is such a tale of what happens to kids, and I know you're not the only one, and right. I'm sure that you've discovered that, but I'm a mom, and I just sit here thinking about my own kids and what they would feel. And to see somebody who's so beautiful and so filled with life and all of that, being called all these names to the point where you start questioning yourself and don't even know who you are anymore in 8th grade. It's amazing. So, it got so bad that you didn't want to live anymore.
Absolutely, yeah, and that was the case for me. And my parents, my parents were very knit close family. We're really close, and we all love each other very much. And I'm really close to my sister and my parents, and they saw that I wasn't the happy, outgoing me. So they pulled me out of the school system, and they were able to homeschool me. But as you and me know, that's not always the case with kids. Kids don't always get the case to be homeschooled and have their parents pull them out of school, because most of the time their parents are working 24/7, both of them. So they might not even have a parent figure in their life.
Right.
So and that's a lot of the case that comes with bullying as well, is they don't have a parent figure to look up to.
Or even if their parents love them as much as they possibly could, when you're bullied, you don't believe that you're loved that much, so maybe you're not even going to tell your mom and dad what's going on. So even if they had the opportunity to do something to help you change it, sometimes kids don't feel comfortable to even tell their parents.
No, absolutely not. And I think that was the case for me at first. Is just I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to bring it up. I was just sad, depressed, and that tunnel, the light at the end of the tunnel, there was no light. It was dark and it was black, and I did not see light. But with my parents, one thing I always thank them for, especially with my mom. My mom used to sleep with me every single night in my room to make sure I wouldn't commit suicide. And she'd watch me and make sure I was okay. And at the time, I hated her. I hated her for that. And Mom, just leave me alone. I want to die. I don't want to be here, just leave me alone. But now I thank her every day. So, if it wasn't for her being there and supporting me and being with me and loving me, I wouldn't be here today.
Well, do you mind talking a little bit more about how it felt and what you were going through? Because, celebrities have committed suicide recently, and there's been a lot of talk of that. And for many, many people, I think that there's two ways to look at it. Some people almost see it as heroic, to commit suicide, especially when you've been in medical pain or constant psychological pain for a very long time. It's like you can't live with it for that long, and I know that there are times that people have sought out help and it hasn't helped, and they haven't been able to, and I'm not going to pass judgment on that. I just think that that's the way it is sometimes. But also, a lot of times, especially with adolescents, you grow out of that, and life does change. But what was that like for you?
Being in that situation, it's really, the way to describe it is no light at the end of the tunnel, because that was really truly it. There was no light at the end of that tunnel, and that tunnel was black. I felt sad constantly. I felt depressed constantly, like there was no hope for me. There was no light, and this was, I think when kids are depressed and when people are depressed, they can't see past, more further into their life, because they're so focused on what's happening now. And I know that for a fact because I've been through it. There was no light at the end of the tunnel, and there was no point on going on. What was the point of going on if this is how it's going to be for the rest of my life? And I'm not saying that I'm perfect now. We all have times where we get sad and depressed, and I still have times where I struggle at points. But looking back on what I've been through and what I felt and how depressed I felt, I just thank God that I don't, that I decided to go on and keep going, because it got better, and it's getting better, and every day it gets better. And there's more to life, and look at the amazing people I get to meet each day with the things that I'm doing. If I wasn't here and that experience didn't happen, I wouldn't be here to meet these amazing people every day and be with these people every day. So it's truly a blessing for me in a way, because I get to do what I do now. But all I saw at the time was dark, but little did I know that point was going to end. The darkness was going to go away, and slowly the light started to come at the end.
How did that start happening? How did it start changing to where you could start to see some light?
Absolutely. So for me, I think one of my biggest things that I tell when I public speak and stuff to kids who are dealing with the same kind of thing is that you have a voice, because kids don't want to talk about it. And you just said that, kids don't want to talk about it. They want to shut it in. They don't want to talk. But I think the greatest thing for me was when I opened up and started talking to, my counselor. My counselor at the time was my best friend. I lunch in her office every day, and I go back and thank her, and I still go visit her. We still sit down and have lunch together.
So this was your counselor at school?
At school.
Yeah.
So there are people that will listen to you. You just have to find the right people. It might be a friend, it might be an adult, it might be your parents, it might be a teacher, it might be the principal, but reach out to people and don't give up and don't lose hope, because you will find somebody who's going to be there and listen to you and be there for you. And you don't even have to talk about what you're going through. Just sit down. We didn't even really talk much about what I was going through. It was just someone to be there with me and sit down and have lunch with me.
A
connection. And I never knew how important that was at the time. I didn't even recognize it. But now looking back, I'm like, wow, that connection was special.
It was a lifeline.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
So as you started kind of coming out on the other side, what was that like?
It was so refreshing to me to be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel, to be able to finally be happy. But with going home and being homeschooled, there was still bullying going on at home, because this is something my mom always tells me, is when she was being bullied as a kid, little Billy would sit on the bridge and she couldn't, she'd have to go around a different path, and then when she got home she was safe. Nowadays it's different. There's internet, there's bullying all over the internet, cyberbullying everywhere, and I experienced some of that as well, and it was still difficult. But as I kept going and kept going on, I got to see that light and experience that happiness, and it was just so refreshing to me to know that there is hope and there is light. There
are still going to be people who are negative, as I'm sure you still encounter.
Oh, absolutely, every day.
Yeah. But how do you then separate out not letting yourself just get pulled into that, the negativity and we're learning about internet trolls, people like that. How do you not let yourself get pulled into that and stay in the positive?
I'm 18 years old, and I feel that I've experienced a lot of that. I've experienced a lot of adult bullies and a lot of adult bullying and negativity and negative attitudes and people who want to use you, and what I mean, just for social media, for whatever the case may be, they use you.
Because you're successful now and you're doing some things, so people want to attach themselves to you and take the ride and let you have done all the work, and they can...
In a way, yeah. But, I just feel like those people, you can't let yourself get down by that and get down on yourself because of that. I feel that you have to keep going and keep pursuing, and even with the positivity.
Mm-hmm. How do you do that? I mean, it's one thing to say that, but how?
Right. Well, when something happens or I feel down, I just kind of try to look at it a different way. How does it feel a different way? You could sit down and look at just this negative situation, but what good came out of that? Did a good experience come out of that? I did a talk show for a while, and it ended up, I did a video talk show, and it ended up ending pretty badly with some betrayal and some, some negativity. And, looking back on it, I was like 12 years old, but, I could sit there and say, wow, she really used us. They used us. But really, did they? Because I got so much experience from that and met so many amazing people that I still talk to today and that have helped me out in my success in my life. So really, was it a negative thing? So it's so easy to sit down and look at the negativity. And I do sometimes. Like I say, it's really easy to just look at the negativity. And yeah, I have moments where I break down as well. But, just looking at the positivity, you have to look at the positive. You have to, because there is so much positive.
Well, and I think sometimes just being able to grieve whatever happened, because it is painful when people betray you or when things are said that are negative, that hurt. Because they're personal attacks. It really is personal. It's against you as to who you are and what you're trying to do, and it's painful. And so, you can't just look at that and go, well, let's look at the positive. And sometimes you do have to just say, man, this hurts. And allow it to hit for a little bit, and because you got to be human, and that hurts, and you're a robot if it doesn't, But then being able to step back and say, okay, made it through that. Yes. I've been through worse. now let me find something positive in this.
Absolutely.
And then being able
love
to
the
move
way you
forward.
look at that. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, I think that sometimes you can just get sucked into that negative and not be able to find anything positive. But I think on the other hand, there are some people that I've met that like everything is positive, and I'm thinking, are you living in the same world?
Right?
Does nothing negative ever happen to you? Because I don't think it's realistic.
Right.
To just walk around with a smile on your face all the time and somebody just bashes you on Twitter or whatever and you're like, oh, no problem, it doesn't faze me at all. It's like, yeah, of course it phases you.
Right.
Sometimes it can knock you off your feet for a minute.
Absolutely.
So let's deal with it honestly and then be able to move on.
It's okay to break down, you know, and like you said, we're only human. And a story real quick is there was a girl at the middle school that I was bullied at, and I was on the cover of BU magazine, which is a girl's self-esteem magazine.
What does BU mean?
It means be your own you. So it's a girl's self-esteem magazine, and I was so blessed about 3 years ago, to be on the cover. I can't believe that. I'm like, wow, life is flying.
That's amazing.
But I was so blessed to be on the cover, and with my counselor, who was like my best friend, she had a copy of my magazine, and this girl was being bullied and came into her office, and she said, you see this? This girl got bullied here. And she said, that girl's perfect. And I'm like, oh, I will show her. So I put my hair in a bun, and I had pimples, and I wore no makeup, and I just walked in, and I'm like, yeah, that's me, but I am so real, and we all have days where, you gotta be real. And we all break down, and we all, have pimples, and you know what I mean? And we're only human. So, I'm not perfect. And I have days where, like I said, where I still break down. We're only human, and breaking down is normal.
Right, absolutely. Especially as an older teenager. You're coming up on 19, 20, young adulthood, and there's so many changes going on in your life, and it can be very, very up and down. And thankfully you've been through to the pit, and know you can come through on the other side. I think a lot of people don't experience something like that until maybe later in life.
Right.
And when it hits, it can be so astounding and they don't know what to do. I'm so not thankful that you've been through this, but you can go through anything because you've been through this.
I feel like in a way I've hit rock bottom. I feel that was my rock bottom for me. And what I say is, once you hit rock bottom, there's no more going down. You can only go back up. So I know that it can't get any worse than that. So I can get through anything, and I can achieve anything now that I put my mind to. And anything that may be bringing me down, you can get over that little lump in the road.
Awesome. What advice would you have? And I know you have tons of it, but what advice, if there is somebody watching who is being bullied?
Like I said before, you have a voice, and we need to know that your voice is important, and you need to use it because it is so important. Reach out, talk to somebody, talk to anyone, and just use your voice because you are important.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the internet can be really negative, but it can also be really awesome. Because I think there is so much out there on bullying right now and on where to go for help with bullying. So Google it, go on YouTube, find somebody that you can connect with about this type of issue, because there is help out there, and you can find a voice even on the internet. You could start a blog, you could do all sorts of things. So it can provide some really good things as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, social media is great, and reach out to support groups. I know there's bullying support groups all over the internet. Just Google it. Start it, like you said, start a blog. Just reach out to people who are going through the same situation and relate to them, because you'll find those people who care, and that can relate to you, and you'll feel better.
Well, and it sounds like that one counselor that you had, the connection when you finally felt like you weren't alone. And I want to say, even though you were a strong knit, close family, sometimes at that age, it's almost like you need somebody from outside.
Absolutely.
Not necessarily.
I don't want to tell mom my issues, you know what I mean? Or dad my issues. I want to talk to someone who maybe hasn't known me my whole life, and I just met and I just want to vent to, Such as my counselor. She didn't know me, when I was a young kid. She knows me now and knows what I'm going through now and is able to help me.
And yet mom can be there through the nights.
Absolutely.
And protect you and keep you safe when you're not safe for yourself.
Right.
So, well, Cassie, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm so glad you're going to be able to stick around and do another one. We'll hear all about what you're doing now.
Absolutely.
And thank you all for joining us here on Broken and Brilliant. We'll see you next time.